Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to ENG4E, Term 2A. I am your instructor, Mike Laverty, and today is February 8th, 2023. We are on to class number 3. We are still working on Unit 1, and today we'll tackle Key Questions 3 and Key Questions 4. There is a lot of key questions in this unit, but we're just slowly wading into it. As we get into it, like starting next week, I'll probably do like 3 or 4 or 5 key questions in one class, but there's a lot of foundational concepts that I wanted to cover, and I don't want to rush through any of this stuff. So the first unit takes the longest, and there's a lot to cover, but I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and give you lots of background information. And that's why we have these classes, right? So you can read the material on your own and try to work through it on your own, but I think it's much more beneficial for you to have a mentor like myself break down some of the concepts that you find in the course material later on in the novel, right? So I'm your guide, I'm your mentor that's going to help you get through this. So I recommend you watch these videos, take some notes, and please get back to me if you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you'd like me to focus on other things, if there's something you like that I'm doing, you want to see more of, if you think I'm doing too much of something else, I want to get feedback of any kind. So yeah, please reach out, let me know if you got any questions. All right, so we are in week 1 of classes in term 2A. This is a 9-week course. So we'll wrap up week 1 tomorrow of term 2A. There's no classes on Monday, February the 20th, because that's Family Day. And we will have no broadcasts from March 13th to the 16th because of March break. So I think this is doable. I think this is where we will finish up. We will devote 2 weeks to every unit. I think that looks to me to be a very realistic timeline going forward. So weeks 1 and 2, we'll look at unit 1. So we'll wrap up unit 1 next week. Might need a bit more time. It's the longest one, but we should be able to tackle a unit every 2 weeks, which will leave us with 1 week at the end to do our final exam preparation, week number 9. Yeah. So unfortunately, we are still trying to get that studio up and running. So until that happens, the only way you can participate in the class live is to join us through Zoom. So that's Monday through Thursday, 2 to 2:55 p.m. Central Standard Time. I am hoping that next week we'll have the radio up and running and the phone line, so people can phone into the studio and talk to myself, ask some questions. And the only way we can do that now is through Zoom. So that the Zoom link is there. That's the meeting ID at the end. This 417-669-9799. That's my meeting ID. That's how you find me on Zoom. You have to type in that whole URL and you'll get my Zoom link. If you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to myself, your DEC, or the WASA office, and I'll put that contact info on the screen in a second. If you visit my YouTube channel by searching for Laverty WASA, you can search up playlists and you will find an ENG4E playlist. You'll find 2 of them, actually. You'll find ENG4E term 2A. That's every course in this term. And then you'll find ENG4E unit 1. So every class that deals with unit 1 will be together in one playlist. So when you're studying for unit 1 and when you're completing unit 1, it'll all be in there. You can Ask your DEC to scan, email, fax, you know, these. So up on the screen here is multiple ways that you can submit your work. And I do want to mention that it's best to send in 1 to 5, you know, maybe 10 assignments at a time, and definitely not an entire unit. I think it's really better if you submit small batches of assignments. So don't think you're bothering me by sending in 1 or 2 assignments. That's actually what I prefer. I would actually prefer to see smaller chunks of assignments, and then that way I can mark them faster and I can give you feedback, right? So don't worry about submitting 2 or 3 at a time. That's totally fine. It actually becomes an issue for me when people submit like an entire unit. Or like 2 at a time sometimes, right? It's just, it's too much for me to mark at one time. And then I can't provide you with the proper feedback, because this course is all about feedback, right? So I love to give my students lots of information about where they're at and what they can work on, what they can improve upon. So I'm hoping that when you get your graded assignment back, you can read what I wrote you and apply that to your next assignment, right? But there's many ways you can get your work in, and they're up on the screen. And if you want to contact me, then this is the way to do it. If you're watching on YouTube, you can pause the screen and make a note of this. All this information is in your study guide. And then my contact info is also in the units. So, and you can also be found on Facebook by going to the WASA Facebook, or by phoning the WASA office and finding out the information, or by phoning your local learning center. You want to get in touch with me Monday through Friday, 9 to 3 Central Standard Time. I teach from 1 to 3, so I'm not responsive very much during that time. But if you want to contact me from 9 a.m. to, I'm usually here at 8:45 too, right? So if you contact me super early in the morning or late at night, I won't be able to respond to it. But when I come into work, student emails and student questions are always my #1 responsibility, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. So here's your homework. Here's your next steps. This is where I think you should be. You should definitely be contacting me if you haven't done so already. So send me an email, send me a Facebook Messenger note, send me a phone call. Read the study guide and Unit 1 of ENG4E. So read the study guide, read Unit 1, and try to read the first chapter of Where the Rivers Meet. So we will start to talk about this novel when we bring up Unit 2. So that's coming up pretty fast. So you want to at least read the first chapter and start reading ahead in that book as much as you can. All right. And you should have completed key question 1 by now, right? So and then go back to my first class and watch that lecture if you haven't done so already, and you'll get some tips for completing assignment 1. All right, so we will look at an article of the day. We'll look at nouns and verbs, and we will look at antecedents and pronouns. Key questions 3 and 4. So our learning goals are to review the 9 parts of speech with a focus on nouns and verbs, and to learn about antecedents and pronouns. And you will be successful if you can complete key question 3 by using your knowledge of nouns and verbs, and complete key question 4 by using your knowledge of antecedents and pronouns. So let's jump in there and make sure we know what these things mean, okay? So a noun, of course, names a person, place, or thing. Up on the screen, I put some examples of compound nouns. So compound nouns are when more than one word have been fused together. And you see how they're joined with that hyphen right there. So dry cleaning, Jack in the box. Sometimes they get combined together, like haircut. So I think haircut at one point was hair-cut, but it just got jammed together. We used to say to the morrow. This is like super old-fashioned English. People would say, I'll see you to the morrow. And morrow means the next day. And then that got shortened to tomorrow. So I think that happens to a lot of words. They just get jammed together. And then after a while, even the hyphen disappears. Verbs are action words. So I have multiple forms of one word, like to swim, swam, swimming, will swim. There's another auxiliary verb, the helping verb, will swim. Pronouns are a word that takes the place of a noun. They, we, us, those are collective pronouns. So pronouns are singular and plural, and more on that in a few slides. Adverbs tell us how an action verb is done. So we have always, sometimes, rarely. So he would rarely write me. He always took the trash out. She rarely does the dishes, right? So it tells how something was done, right? So someone's not just doing something, it's how they do it. Adjectives describe a noun. They often use the 5 senses. They're very descriptive words. So enormous, beautiful, ugly. Articles used before nouns. There's 3 articles in the human language. The English language. A, and the. Those are the 3. So if you see those 3 words, you're looking at an article. Conjunctions. These are joining words. This is the fanboys. F-A, oh, I missed one, nor. There we go, I got my pen working. F-A-N, fan, B-O-Y-S. So fanboys is an acronym. It's a mnemonic device. A mnemonic device is anything that helps you memorize something, like homes for the Great Lake, Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior. Fanboys isn't the only conjunctions, but it's a useful one to remember some of the conjunctions. So for, and, nor, but, or, yet. So and what they do is they combine groups of words. They're very useful. Prepositions show relationships of nouns, pronouns to other words. Up on the screen, I've got some time ones like during, through, beside, inside, during, after, before. They tell us when things happen. And interjections are words or phrases to show strong emotions like wow, hey, things like that. Oh, I've got to clear all drawings. There we go. All right, so on Wednesdays, I will do an article of the day. So here's today's article. We've got Ontario court rules encampments can stay if there's a shortage of shelter beds. An encampment for unhoused people at Allen Gardens in Toronto on October 21st, 2022. Chris Donovan, the Globe and Mail. So here's our headline. Here's our photograph right there. Here's our caption, which explains the photograph. And that's the photo credit. So it's his photograph, Chris Donovan, and who he works for. So I've taken the headline and I've color coded it. So the nouns are in blue. So court, encampments, shortage, beds. Adjectives are in orange. So Ontario, shelter, and the verbs are in green. So rules, can stay, and prepositions are in red. So just a refresher from yesterday, we're talking about subject and predicate. So the subject of this sentence is the Ontario court, but of course it's not just any court, it's the Ontario court. So court is a noun, it's a thing. And Ontario is also a thing, but in this case, it functions like an adjective, right? So it tells us where the court is, right? So it's describing the noun court. So it's an Ontario court. So an Ontario court rules is what they did. So rules can be a noun, like the teacher had many rules, right? But rules is also a verb. It's something you do. So the court rules encampments, that's a thing, right? Can stay. So they're both verbs, right? So stay is the main verb and can is the auxiliary helper verb. Now, if is a conjunction, so it combines them. So Ontario court rules encampments can stay. So that's one idea. And the second idea is if there's a shortage of shelter beds. So the if is definitely, it connects the two ideas. Like this thing is true, but only if this thing happens. So if there's a shortage of shelter beds. Okay, so there, in this case, is an adverb. And then so this one's kind of a combined word, okay? So let me just break that down just to make sure this is see if I can type this here. So there, yeah, there's equals there is, right? So when we say there apostrophe s, it's the same thing as saying there is. So in this case, is the verb and there is the adverb. A is an article. Shorted is a noun. The word of is a preposition. Of shelter beds. We're not just talking about beds, we're talking about beds that are in shelter. So the adjective shelter modifies the noun beds. Okay. Let's try to make that go away. Doesn't want to go away. All good. There we go. So just a quick breakdown of the lead paragraph. In a precedent-setting decision that will have implications across the province, comma, the Ontario Superior Court of Justice had denied a municipality's request to remove a homeless encampment on the basis that doing so, when there is no adequate indoor space, would violate the residents' charter rights. So I want to talk about a couple of things here. So the apostrophe S is showing possession, so it's something belongs to the municipality. Same with this, something belongs to the residents. So let's have a quick look at that right here. So something belongs to the resident. So when the word ends in an S, then you go residence like that. If it was something that belongs to a resident, like one resident, it would be residence like that, right? So like it would be the residents rights, or the singular residence apartment. Okay. And then similarly, up here, something belongs to the municipality. So that's why it's apostrophe S. And we have in a precedent setting decision, so we have a preposition at the start. So we call that a prepositional phrase, and they're useful in writing because they set the tone. So, you know, in a precedent setting decision, you know, during the Second World War, after World War II, you know, before this happened, comma, and then you explain more about it. The ruling, comma, which was released Friday in a case involving the regional municipality of Waterloo, comma, falls in line with a growing body of case law in British Columbia that has found denying a person the ability to set up a shelter outside when space is not available inside infringes on their right to life, liberty, and security of the person. So I want to point out something here. So so this part right here, which was released Friday in a case involving the regional municipality of Waterloo. So you could simply read the ruling falls in line with a growing body of case law, but they use the commas, and this comma right here and this comma right here are the same as like brackets. You could have put a bracket here and a bracket there, and everything in the middle is sort of like additional information that tells us more about the ruling. So when you write information articles, when you write articles and text of all kinds, you're often introducing ideas to your reader. So you introduce the main idea, and then there's ways of expanding upon that and giving them more information, right? But you have to follow the rules of grammar and convention and use the right punctuation to do that, right? So, but you just need to pay attention to how somebody else does it, and then copy it and use it for your own purposes, right? So that's why we're looking at these articles. And we don't have time to go through it all, but I just wanted to highlight that article and just look at some of the parts of speech and, you know, and just break them down for you. So Unit 1, key question 3 is asking you to write about nouns and verbs. Well, not write about them, but write using them. So you need to write 5 sentences of your own that will show your understanding of nouns and verbs. Place an N over words that are nouns in your sentences and a V over words that are verbs. Okay, so that's what you're being asked to do in key question 3. So before we do that, I just want to break down just have a little bit of a more of an elaborate discussion on nouns. So nouns, you know, they are, remember, a noun is something that names a person, place, or thing, but there are many kinds of nouns, right? So these are most of them up on the screen right now. So we have common nouns, and common nouns they're not specific to like they're sort of like well, I guess the best way to look at it is my example on the screen. Country is a common noun, so country, dog, you know, fish, toy, right? It's just they're sort of like general categories, and they're not specific, whereas proper nouns are very specific. So a common noun is country, but a specific proper noun is Canada, right? And you notice that country is not capitalized, but Canada is. So when we're talking about specific nouns, we always capitalize them. There are singular and plural nouns. So there's dog and dogs, right? So there's singular and plural. There are abstract nouns. So these are concepts and ideas like democracy and happiness and you know, like fear, anxiety, joy, you know, like they're emotions. They are, and it's the idea of the emotion, right? You can experience happiness, and if you say I am happy, then, you know, like that's more like a state of being, but like there's the idea of happiness. So there's like, same with like there's you running a marathon, and then there's the idea of running, right? So like running is a sport, it's like a thing, but it's also something you do. So it really depends on the context. There are concrete nouns, and these are nouns that you can detect with your 5 senses, probably the best way to do it. So like smell, sight, sound, things that you can touch, right? There are collective nouns, so like teams and businesses. So like just things, you know, like a band council, a municipal council, you know, just a band. And then there's countable nouns and uncountable nouns, right? There can be 1 person in the room, there can be 10 people in the room, but you can't have 4 air, right? The air is it's just a very kind of hard to nail down topic. Same with water, right? You can't have 1 water. doesn't make sense. You can have 1 glass of water, 1 drop of water, 1 liter of water, 10 liters of water, right? But you can't have 1 water or 1 air or, you know, one light, right? Unless you're talking about like a very specific light, but you know, like, so if it can be counted, it's countable. If it can't be counted, it's an uncountable noun. And I forgot to change my heading at the top here, so I'm just going to do that now. I wonder if I can make that bigger. I probably can't. Oh, whoops, that doesn't work. All right, so we're talking about types of verbs, okay? So there are many types of verbs, and I haven't put all of them on the screen, but I've I don't think puttin's a word. I have placed, I have put, I have written 3 of these types of verbs on the screen. So there's action verbs, which are the most common. So usually when you think of a verb, if you're like me, you think they're just action words, but that's not true. They come in all kinds. So there's action words like help, skate, teach, learn, write, and read. And I think the easiest way to think about action words or action verbs are people can see you do them. They're visible, they're external. You kick the ball, you climb the fence, you paint the painting, you read the book, you write a letter, you teach the chorus, you put on your clothes, right? You jump through the window and whatever, right? So it's something that someone can see. It's an external action, right? Then there's stative or stative. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. I'm going to go with stative. Stative verbs or stative verbs are words that are their inner states of being. So it's inner, not external. So you can't, I mean, you might be able to see it, but it's internal to me, right? So want, own, have, resemble, love. So it's internal to me. So that their states of being, their opinions, their beliefs. And then we have auxiliary verbs, which are be, have, do, will, can. I will skate tomorrow. I can help you. I do love this chorus. I have given this some thought. I will be there tomorrow, right? So some verbs can't function by themselves. They have to have like a helper with them. So that's an auxiliary verb. All right, so I'm just going to pull up my handy dandy Word document here. Okay. I'll share that screen with you. So if we go back, oops. There we go. Sorry, still getting the hang of this. All right, so we are being asked to write 5 sentences. Write 5 sentences of our own that show your understanding of nouns and verbs. Place an N over the words that are nouns in your sentences and a V over words that are the verbs. All right, so that's relatively straightforward. So let's go key question 3. And this would be a good time to review some important practices, right? So I'm going to put my name down, Mike Laverty. This is ENG4E, Unit 1, Sioux Lookout, right? So tell me who you are, what course you're writing, what unit you're in, and where your location is, right? So as much information as you can, but this is what I would like to see you write on your piece of paper. And if you're doing this on a word processor, you could even copy it and you could go up to the, see where it says head. If you're using Microsoft Word, you can just, if you don't know where something is, you just search for it and it brings it up. So you just search for the word header, add a header. Okay, and that's my header. And that's going to be on every page of my document now. So now I can just erase this. All right, so key question 3. So, I've got to write 5 sentences, nouns and verbs. Just a little note to myself. I can go back and change that later. So 1. And then I also have to identify the nouns and the verbs. So N for nouns, V for verbs. Okay, and now we just have to write down, a sentence and just make sure we understand the parts of speech. Make sure that we know what we're doing here. So I'm gonna say, I want to buy a bass guitar, or no, I want to buy a new guitar this summer when I go to Winnipeg. Okay. My sister is coming to visit me in a few months. How about this? When my sister comes to visit me in a few months, we will go hiking and look for mushrooms. That's what she loves to do. Okay. 3. Yeah, I'll just do 3, and then I'll just break them down. So my favorite shirt got ruined when I spilled hot sauce on it at the Super Bowl party. Okay. If we have a look at this, so I is a pronoun. Now want, now that would be, let's see if I can, and then you want to identify them. Let's see if this will work. No, that's good enough, right? So I want to, so I do my verbs. I want to buy, another action word, right? I want to buy a new guitar this summer when I go. So that's my verbs. So guitar is a noun. Summer is a noun, and Winnipeg is a noun. So that's all you're doing there, right? So to identify which one of your, every verb in your sentence, and identify every noun. And if you're unsure of it, look it up in the dictionary, okay? And I mean, like the one example I listed here, so Super Bowl party, that could be like one noun. You could almost say Super Bowl is an adjective that modifies noun. So it's gonna be kind of arguable, but I'll probably accept either one there. But You know, hot sauce is usually one idea, right? So I would say they're both one noun, right? Shirt is a noun, but favorite would be an adjective that modifies it, right? Yeah. Hiking is a verb, right? It's something you do, right? So go hiking and look for mushrooms. Okay. Look would be another verb, okay? So that's all you gotta do there. Let's go back to our unit here. All right. We've got 20 minutes left, plenty of time. Okay, so we will talk about pronouns and antecedents, okay? So a pronoun is a word that stands in place for a noun or gives us more information about a noun. The noun that the pronoun stands in place for is called the antecedent, okay? So pronouns and antecedents are pairs and they work together. So the antecedent comes first, so whoops, don't want that, I want my text. So ante equals before. This is a prefix or a part of a word that comes at the start. So ante means before, and there's ante and there's post, right? So post means after. So post Malone literally means after Malone, whoever Malone is, right? So, but ante is before, post is after. So like the post game ceremony, the post game, you know, special, and ante means before, right? So it comes before. And then the pronoun comes after. So the noun that the pronoun stands in place for is called the antecedent. So the pronoun is standing in place of the antecedent. So let's see how that works. So the noun or antecedent is the Montreal Canadiens in my example, because that's my favorite team. The pronoun is their. The Montreal Canadiens picked their new team captain, and their is a collective pronoun because it belongs to them, the Montreal Canadiens. You know, it's the organization. It's more than one person, so we use their. Here's another example. Robin Doolittle is a reporter for the Globe and Mail. She wrote a book called Crazy Town about Rob Ford. So she is the pronoun and the antecedent is Robin Doolittle. So instead of saying her full name, I say she. And that's why we have pronouns, is basically to save time. It gets awkward saying someone's name over and over again. And it just speeds things up to call them by she, he, it, they, whatever pronoun they go by. That's primarily why pronouns were invented, and that's their function they serve. My sister Tanya and her daughter Paige, I hope, are visiting me this Christmas. I hope they are bringing lots of presents with them. Right? Sorry, it says brining. It should say bringing. Gotta change that one. So, yeah, I hope they are bringing lots of presents with them. So in this case, the pronoun they is standing in place for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words, right? So instead of saying, I hope my sister Tanya and her daughter Paige bring lots of presents with them, I just say they. And so when you hear that sentence, you know what they refers to, right? Nobody has to tell you that. It's implied, you understand it. If you speak the language, if you listen to lots of English, then you know that the word they is now standing in place. So the pronoun that we use must be consistent or agree with the antecedent. This is the same way as subject and verb agreement, and it follows the similar rules of like singular and pronoun. So this one uses the wrong pronoun. I hope she is bringing lots of presents with them, right? So she and them don't really go together. She is singular, them is plural. So it doesn't make sense to say she is going to bring with them. I have to change that. We need to use the plural pronoun they. I hope they are bringing lots of presents with them, right? So they and them are consistent. They agree with each other. So the verb we use must also be consistent or agree with the antecedent. The following sentence uses the wrong verb. I hope they is bringing lots of presents with them. So they and is don't get along because they is a plural or a collective pronoun, and is a singular verb, right? So it needs to be are, right? They are bringing lots of presents with them. I hope they are. If it was just my sister, I would say I hope she is, right? She is singular, so is, but you know we say are for are is to go with plural verbs. It's a plural verb that goes with a plural pronoun. All right, so Unit 1, key question 4, antecedents and pronouns. You will recall that a pronoun is a word that can take the place of a noun, and an antecedent is the word or group of words to which a pronoun refers. The antecedent is usually a proper noun. These two aspects of a sentence must also be in agreement to create a good sentence. That's just what we've covered, right? So after Carrie washed the supper dishes, she went out to see a friend. Carrie is the antecedent and she is the pronoun, so that's consistent. Write 5 sentences of your own that will show your understanding of antecedents and pronouns. Underline the antecedents and the pronouns. So that's what you have to do. You have to look at them, and you have to write the sentence, and then you have to underline it, right? All right, so let's copy and paste this. Key question 4. No, I already forgot. Yeah, 5 sentences. Okay, that's what we're doing. All right, so we need to write 5 sentences with antecedents and pronouns. So what you want to do is you want to follow a pattern here, right? So you want to introduce a subject of your sentence, and this will usually be a proper, / specific noun. This is your antecedent. Then you replace the antecedent with a correct pronoun. Try singular and plural. Plural. Yeah, so I recommend you try both. So try your hand at doing some singular ones. Try your hand at doing some plural ones, and then pick the correct usage. I'll try one with it, okay? A large black dog ran across my yard. It was carrying a huge stick. Okay? So, I'm going to underline so I know that the word it replaces large black dog, okay? So that's that one. Let's try a singular one. Let's see. I am taking a psychology course. Let's see. What's his name again? Stanley. Oh, I can't remember his name. I'm drawing a blank here. Let's see. Professor Noam Chomsky is presenting a lecture. Noam is presenting a lecture tonight. He is my favorite writer. So that's my subject, my antecedent, and then he is my pronoun. And let's try one more. Alright, so favorite, I'm going to change that because that is the correct spelling. So the Montreal Canadiens are my favorite team. They are not doing well this year, so they replaces the Montreal Canadiens. And then, if you've noticed, what I've done here is I'm also kind of doing double duty. So I've used the semicolon here, and when you use a semicolon, so a semicolon is this little piece of punctuation right there. Whoops. Guess that's also a winky face. So these are used to one of their uses is to combine independent clauses together. Now, an independent clause is a part of a sentence that has a subject and a verb and subject and verb that could stand on its own and has a subject and verb. Okay, so we haven't got into this too much, but I want to spend some time talking about it. It's a very, very important concept when you're taking an English course to understand these things. So a sentence is made up of clauses, and so an independent clause is one that could stand alone in its own sentence. So it was carrying a huge stick could be its own sentence. He is my favorite writer could be its own sentence. They are not doing well this year could be its own sentence, but they get combined together with that semicolon. The semicolon is like the glue that joins them together. Now a dependent clause is a part of a sentence that could not stand on its own and has a subject and verb. And of course, a clause is a part of a sentence. A phrase. Is a part of a sentence that only has a subject and no verb, or it has a verb and no subject, or it has neither subject or verb. Okay, so you see that the concept of subject and verb is foundational, and you really have to understand how subject and verb go together. So, and then there's all kinds of different phrases that get kind of put in. And then you're just kind of constructing sentences that way. So what we're doing right now is we're learning how to build sentences. And you can build a sentence by putting an independent clause next to a dependent clause. You know, you can build them all together. You know, like one example you could do would be to say something like, you know, kicked myself. So this is a true story about myself. So when the Montreal Canadiens won the Stanley Cup in 1993, comma, I jumped around my house and kicked myself off the walls while screaming as loud as I could. So, and then we could break this down. So, this is an introductory clause. When the Montreal Canadiens won the Stanley Cup in 1993. So it's a dependent clause. This is an I jumped around my house and kicked myself off the walls. And this is a phrase. So by combining these three, I get one long sentence, okay? Just thought that'd be a good way to finish off today's class, just looking at just ways you can combine them all together, right? So we'll delve into this a little bit later, but I just wanted to spend some time talking about constructing and building sentences. So more on that later, but you know, just a nice introduction to that process. Now, next class, we're going to jump into simple and compound sentences. So we'll talk about clauses and conjunctions, semicolons. So I just wanted to spend some time talking about that today. Key question 6, you'll do some more writing. Key question 7, we'll be using some adjective phrases and then delving into some adverb phrases. So we're going to continue on with that, doing some writing, learning about clauses, how to construct a sentence. So using the parts of speech to build up clauses and phrases, and then using clauses and phrases to build up sentences. And then we use our sentences to build up our paragraphs, and we use our paragraphs to build up our texts and our essays and our stories and our novels, right? So that's a really important concept to understand, is that it's all little pieces that build up to make bigger pieces, right? So different sounds make up letters, and then different combinations of letters and sounds make up words, and then words in combination with punctuation make up phrases and clauses, right? So but you really have to understand how each level works, and that helps you become a better editor. It helps you become a stronger reader. So it helps you right across the board understand how these different levels all work with each other. So thanks for tuning in. That's going to be it for today. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.